Why are you on this journey?
I didn't want to come.
Then why did you?
Welcome to Decoding TV's coverage of Agatha All Along, Episode 7. Patrick Klepek, what did you think about this episode?
I loved this episode. I actually think this is one of the best episodes of television the MCU has produced. Had strong echoes. I would not be surprised to learn if they were thinking about the Lost episode, The Constant, which is also one of my favorite episodes of television.
Yes.
So there is a definite connection between the framing device of how this episode is deployed that brings me back to a episode of a television show I'm very fond of. But I think this was a great episode of television. I don't know where this season lands, but something we've talked about a lot is the Marvel's inability to conceive of and take advantage of television as a format, which is to have episodes that have arcs, beginning, middles, and ends. And I think this is up there with some of my favorite Loki episodes or Jessica Jones episodes. I thought it was a great episode of television and a really lovely send-off for a character I barely know and yet was emotionally wound up in by the end. And that's hard to do in a Marvel. That's a low bar for a lot of Marvel stuff. But even outside of the low bar, I thought it was a really good episode of television.
Yeah, I completely agree. I have not been a huge fan of the show so far. I didn't even like last week's episode, which everyone seemed to love. And I found the other episodes to be quite middling. And then this episode comes out of nowhere and completely emotionally devastates me. And I actually think you're underpraising it in the sense of I don't think this is just one of the best MCU TV episodes. I think it is one of the best episodes of genre television. I think in this sort of time hopping fantasy genre that has ever been made, as a demonstration of this concept. I thought it was wonderful. And this episode shows why you hire somebody with the acting talent of Patti Lupone, right?
Yes.
Why did they hire Patti Lupone, a brilliant Tony Award winning actor, for a show like this? Well, this episode shows why, because if you get Patti Lupone, you get something like this. This is only the second best thing that she was known for this week. I don't know if you saw, she went viral for a clip that surfaced on the internet again, in which she's being interviewed by a Variety reporter. Check it out.
Why should President Trump come see your show?
Well, I hope he doesn't, because I won't perform if he does.
Really?
Really.
Tell me why.
Because I hate the motherfucker. How's that?
I mean, come on.
So she's already legend for that. That's queen behavior. And then she's in this episode, which is truly an exemplary hour of television. Yeah.
It feels like an hour. It's 36 minutes. I mean, this is the reverse of where Agatha's trial, I think we didn't linger long enough in the drama and the trauma of it. This episode feels like it's an hour long, but accomplishes an enormous amount in a much thinner amount of time. And I think so much is due to the way she is able to, I think it's really well written as well. And it's well directed, but it's why you hire incredible actors in genre work. They are able to just imbue it with so much on the camera in a way that, lesser actors just cannot. And I think she does so brilliantly in this episode.
Yeah. Jack Schaefer, the showrunner, directed this episode. And she usually doesn't direct that many episodes, but she directed the first couple and also this one. I think they knew this one was going to be a banger. But yeah, let's talk about a few things that happen in this episode, right? We see that Lilia and Jennifer survived the fall through the mud from a couple episodes ago. I think we all felt that would be true.
Show me a body.
And then in this episode, we see the events of the series as perceived by Lilia, who doesn't experience time in a linear fashion. So throughout the entire show, Lilia has been having these kind of momentary lapses where it seems like she's losing time, or she'll just exclaim some random thing all of a sudden, right?
Yeah.
And it's oh, that's weird. I wonder if that's going to add up to anything. And honestly, I've been so conditioned by Marvel TV shows for it not to add up to shit that I'm maybe it's just a quirk that the character does, right?
Right.
But actually, then you see her walking through her thought process or reacting to things, and it all makes sense. All those outbursts from the entire the entire series that I've had, it all is part of one train of thought.
And you can't do it unless you plan. You know what I mean? You plan. You
Yes.
thought about the beginning and you
Yes.
thought about the end.
Yes,
Like,
absolutely.
Bravo.
Agreed. I'm like, holy shit. But not only that, like it's beyond just like a fun parlor trick, in my opinion, because it really makes you think about the nature of experiencing life, in my opinion. Like, I remember when the Curious Case of Benjamin Button came out, like that was supposed to be the movie that made you like think about life, and it didn't really, in my opinion. But it had this amazing tagline of like, life. It was something like life can only be experienced can only be like, you can only reflect on life backward, but you must experience it moving forward, or something along those. I'm butchering it, but something along those lines. And we all experience life moving forward, and this series asks the question like, what if you didn't experience it that way? Like, what if you experience like all different moments at once, or experience them out of order? Like, how would that play with your perception of what things mean? And I just think that's extremely thought provoking, and really well executed through the show. One of my favorite parts is when she's like, "Oh, I thought we were going to be able to skip this part." Like, I felt the same. I felt the same way. I was like, "Oh, maybe we're going to skip the like." I thought the show was going to go really bold and just skip the part where they like reunite with Billy and
Agatha
and Agatha, and just be like, oh, all right, they don't explain how they got there, but it's okay. We just assume that she's time jumping to that thing. But no, the show did. I think you see basically everything that happens. Basically,
Yes. Yeah.
But anyway, yeah, I thought this was so expertly done. Patrick, any other thoughts on this?
Well, I think it's a real strength of the show that in this episode and the episode prior, with Billy, where I think the show has done a good job with the characters that it's put in front of you. Like some of the horror of like what it is to be them, like the idea that like Billy just appears like in like the dead body of this child, and then has to sort of experience life and figure out who they are and deal with these parents who don't know who he actually like that. I think they do a good job of conveying the horror of like what it is like to be that. And I think they do a good job of conveying like how complicated it is for this character to live their life, where they, from the moment they were able to perceive reality in this way, like what is it to know like the entirety of your life in an instant? And what does it mean to live your life if you know what you're going to do later? And I think that it does a really good job of conveying the weight that must put on a person, and how, you know, where in one way that could seem like thrilling, like, ooh, like they can see into the future. It's how all this stuff is conveyed in a lot of like genre fare, and especially in comic booky stuff. And here it's like the weight of your entire life on your shoulders from like such an early age would be, what would that do to a person? It would obviously make them very complicated. And I think they do a great job of conveying that complexity and that weight in a way that the show is very conscious, I think, of like trying to convey the weight of the supernatural or the comic booky stuff that it's playing with in a way that a lot of other comic genre fare just isn't interested. There's been a lot on social media of like, what's your favorite like line delivery? I think this has been like, I forget the one that's been going around, but it's like your like a meanest line delivery. But the way she says, "I loved being a witch," like, oh my God.
Yes.
I loved being a witch.
Yes.
It's the line is, "I loved being a witch." Like, and I'm in episode 965 of like a Marvel universe that started 10 plus years ago. And the line, "I love being a witch," and I can feel myself starting to tear up. I'm like,
yeah.
And only someone like her
Yeah.
could make that line like echo through the cosmos and like speak to you as a human being as you're watching the 50th puzzle piece in like a crudely connected comic book universe. And that one hit me like a ton of bricks.
It's like past tense, right? Like
yes.
like she's already accepted that like she's moving on, and it's like, oh, this moment, she's at this moment before she's gone, but after she's already like moved on from the previous thing, and it's like, oh, it really hits you, you know? Yeah, I agree. That line, and you share Jennifer Kale's horror at like, you know, what it means, right? Because it's like, oh, she's not coming along with us. But yeah, there is this kind of subtext of like, how much of it is what the actor is saying, like versus like what the character is saying.
That's why you cast like an older actor, right? Like so that like
Yeah.
their literal visual appearance brings weight to a line like that. That if you'd cast someone in their 30s, it wouldn't feel the same. And I think it's part of the strength of the episode is that, depending on what age you're at, you can project yourself onto whatever stage of life you're at, relative to where she's at. And I think casting a younger actor, even as talented as they might be, it doesn't work the same without sort of, you can see the age in her eyes and her face, and that's what makes that line so much more powerful.
Hey everyone, David Chen here. Thank you so much for watching that video from Decoding TV. If you want to get an audio version of the show, all you got to do is go to podcast.decodingtv.com. And if you want to support what we do, get ad-free episodes of the podcast and also bonus episodes of the podcast, go to decodingtv.com and become a paid member. Of course, you can also like and subscribe for more. We appreciate it. Thanks. See you later.